The stars twinkled like tiny diamonds scattered across the endless black canvas of space. The Eclipse Vanguard, a sleek and sturdy starship, drifted silently through the cold void. Its mission was simple: patrol the outer edges of known space and ensure no threats approached Earth's colonies. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his sharp blue eyes scanning the monitors in front of him. He was a man of few words but immense focus, someone who had earned the trust of his crew through years of steady leadership. "Anything unusual, Lieutenant?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. His voice carried a calm authority that matched his demeanor. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, seated at the communications console, shook her head slightly. Her dark hair was tied neatly into a bun, and her fingers moved swiftly over the glowing panels. "Nothing yet, sir. Just the usual background noise from nearby systems." Ryan nodded, folding his arms across his chest. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional beep of instruments. It was a routine mission, or so it seemed. But deep down, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They were too far from any major trade routes or imperial outposts. Why send them here unless there was more to this sector than met the eye? Suddenly, Laura's fingers froze over the controls. A faint signal had appeared on her screen, barely noticeable amidst the static. She frowned, leaning closer to examine it. "Captain, I think we've got something." Ryan stepped toward her station, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. "What is it?" "It's weak, almost like it's been buried under layers of interference," Laura replied, adjusting the frequency settings. "But it's definitely artificial. Someone, or something, is trying to communicate." The rest of the crew turned their attention to Laura as she worked. The signal grew clearer with each adjustment, though its origin remained elusive. Finally, after several tense minutes, the message became audible. It wasn't in English or any human language. It was a series of tones and pulses, rhythmic yet haunting. Dr. Emily Foster, the ship's chief scientist, joined them on the bridge. She adjusted her glasses and listened intently. "That pattern, it's not random. It's structured like a code." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Can you decipher it?" Emily hesitated before nodding. "Maybe, but it'll take time." Hours passed as the crew worked tirelessly to decode the mysterious transmission. When they finally succeeded, what they found left everyone stunned. Embedded within the signal were coordinates pointing back to Earth. Earth, the cradle of humanity, long abandoned after centuries of resource depletion and environmental collapse. No one had ventured near the planet in decades, not since the Galactic Empire declared it off limits. And then came the final piece of the puzzle, a single phrase repeated multiple times throughout the message: "You are not alone." Ryan stared at the screen, his mind racing. Who could have sent this? Was it a trap set by the Empire or something else entirely? Whatever the answer, one thing was certain: they couldn't ignore it. Admiral Lewis Harper's face appeared on the main view screen moments later. His expression was stern, almost disapproving. "Captain Carter, what's your status?" "We've detected a signal, Admiral," Ryan reported. "It's coming from Earth." Harper's eyes narrowed. "Earth? That's impossible. There's nothing left there." "That's what we thought," Ryan said evenly. "But this signal suggests otherwise. Permission to investigate further." The Admiral sighed, rubbing his temples. "Be careful. Carter, if the Empire finds out you're poking around where you shouldn't be—" "I understand the risk, sir," Ryan interrupted. "But if there's even a chance this could help us against the Empire, we need to know." Harper hesitated before nodding reluctantly. "Very well, but keep me updated. And remember, one wrong move, and we'll all pay the price." As the transmission ended, Ryan turned to his crew. "Set a course for Earth. Let's find out what's waiting for us." No one spoke as the Eclipse Vanguard shifted direction, heading toward the forgotten planet. Excitement mingled with unease as they prepared to uncover the secrets hidden in the void. The Eclipse Vanguard approached Earth cautiously, its engines humming softly as the desolate planet came into view. The crew stared out of the windows in silence, their eyes fixed on the barren world below. once vibrant with life. Earth now looked like a ghost of its former self. Its surface cracked and gray, its oceans reduced to empty basins. Yet something about it felt different this time, almost alive. "There," Laura said, pointing at her monitor. A faint blip appeared on the edge of the sensor's range. At first it seemed like nothing more than an asteroid or debris floating in orbit. But as they drew closer, the object grew larger, revealing itself to be far more extraordinary. "What is that?" Ryan asked, his voice low with awe. Commander Jason Holt leaned forward, squinting at the view screen. "It's huge. Bigger than any ship I've ever seen." The object was indeed massive, a supercarrier unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Its sleek design gleamed under the dim light of the distant sun, and glowing blue lines pulsed across its surface like veins carrying energy. It hovered silently in space, untouched by time or decay. There were no signs of damage, no hints of who or what had built it. Could it be Imperial? Laura wondered aloud. Ryan shook his head. No. This isn't their style. Look at those arcings. They're completely unfamiliar. Jason stepped forward, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm. We need to check it out. Whatever it is, it sent that signal. Ryan agreed, but remained cautious. Take a team aboard. Be careful. If this thing has been here for centuries, there's no telling what kind of defenses it might have. Jason nodded and quickly assembled a small boarding party. Alongside him went 2 engineers, a medic and Laura, whose expertise in communications made her invaluable. As their shuttle detached from the Eclipse Vanguard, the group prepared themselves for the unknown. When they reached the supercarrier, they found no visible entrance. The hull was smooth and unbroken, as if designed to keep intruders out forever. Just as frustration began to set in, a section of the wall shimmered and dissolved, creating an opening large enough for the shuttle to pass through. Inside, the air was cool and still, filled with a faint hum that resonated through the corridors. The walls were lined with the same glowing patterns seen on the exterior, casting eerie shadows across the floor. Everything looked pristine, untouched by dust or age. It was as though the ship had been waiting patiently for someone to arrive. This place gives me the creeps, one of the engineers muttered, clutching his scanner tightly. Laura ignored the comment, her focus entirely on the strange symbols flickering along the walls. She pulled out her datapad and began recording everything she saw. These aren't just decorations, they're part of some kind of system, maybe instructions. As they ventured deeper, holographic displays sprang to life around them. Faint images of star systems, alien creatures, and advanced machinery danced in the air. None of it made immediate sense, but Laura noticed recurring phrases written in a language she didn't recognize. One word appeared over and over again. Born from the void. Whatever this ship is, Jason said, glancing around warily. It wasn't made by humans. They eventually reached a central chamber, where a massive console stood in the middle of the room. When Laura touched it, the entire ship seemed to come alive. Lights brightened, panels shifted, and a deep rumble echoed through the structure. Data streamed across the console, too fast for anyone to read. But then fragments of information began to appear in English. The ship calls itself Aegis Dawn, Laura read aloud, her voice trembling slightly. And it says it was created to protect humanity. Protect us from what? Jason asked, gripping his weapon tighter. Before Laura could answer, the console displayed another message. Biometric scan required. A beam of light shot out, scanning each member of the team. When it reached Laura, it paused, pulsing brighter, before retracting. The words "access granted" flashed across the screen. You've got to be kidding me, Jason muttered, looking at Laura. You're the key? Laura looked just as surprised as everyone else. I don't understand. Why me? The ship didn't offer answers, only more questions. As the team prepared to return to the Eclipse Vanguard, they couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled upon something far greater than themselves. The Aegis Dawn wasn't just a relic. It was a promise, a weapon, and perhaps a warning, all rolled into one. and whatever secrets it held, they would change everything for better or worse. Back aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, the crew gathered in the main briefing room, their faces a mix of excitement and unease. The discovery of the Aegis Dawn had left everyone with more questions than answers. Captain Ryan Carter stood at the head of the table, his arms crossed as he listened to the boarding team's report. "It's operational," Jason Holt explained, leaning forward. The ship responded to Laura's biometric scan like it was waiting for her specifically. Ryan turned his gaze to Laura, who sat quietly, still processing what had happened. "Do you have any idea why it chose you?" Laura shook her head, her voice soft but steady. "No, sir. I've never seen anything like it before. But the data we collected suggests the ship was built using technology far beyond anything we've ever developed. Maybe even beyond the Empire." Dr. Emily Foster, seated beside Laura, chimed in. "If we can figure out how to use it, this could be our chance to fight back against the Empire." "That ship is powerful, more powerful than anything they've got." Ryan nodded slowly, weighing the risks. Activating an alien supercarrier wasn't something to take lightly. "What about defenses? Could there be traps or automated systems that might turn on us?" Jason shrugged. "We didn't see any signs of hostility while we were inside, but that doesn't mean they aren't there. We'll need to proceed carefully." Despite the unknowns, the decision was clear. If they could harness the Aegis Dawn's power, it could tip the scales in humanity's favor. Ryan gave the order to return to the Supercarrier and begin testing its systems under strict supervision. Over the next few days, the crew worked tirelessly to unlock the ship's secrets. Engineers pored over its mechanisms, while scientists studied the glowing patterns etched into its walls. Slowly but surely, they began to understand how it functioned. The Aegis Dawn wasn't just a ship. It was a masterpiece of engineering, equipped with capabilities that defied imagination. One of the first breakthroughs came when they activated the cloaking field. At the press of a button, the massive vessel vanished from sight, leaving only the faintest ripple in the air. Then came the energy shields, which glowed brightly as simulated attacks bounced harmlessly off them. Finally, they tested the plasma cannons, weapons capable of obliterating entire fleets with pinpoint accuracy. But the true marvel lay in the ship's core. Deep within the Aegis Dawn's heart was a reactor unlike anything they'd ever seen. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, sustaining the ship without the need for fuel or external resources. It was self-sustaining, nearly indestructible. As the tests continued, Laura found herself drawn deeper into the mystery. The ship seemed to respond uniquely to her presence, almost as if it recognized her. Panels would light up when she approached, and holographic displays would appear, showing fragments of information meant only for her eyes. One night, while exploring the central chamber alone, she stumbled upon a hidden interface. When she touched it, the room transformed. A hologram of a starry galaxy materialized above her, swirling with colors and shapes too complex to comprehend. A voice echoed softly, speaking not in words but in feelings. Images of collapsing stars, rising civilizations, and endless wars flashed before her mind. She gasped, clutching her head as the visions overwhelmed her. "Laura!" Jason rushed into the room, alarmed by her sudden cry. "I'm fine," she said quickly, though her hands trembled. It showed me something. The ship has memories. Memories of its creators." "Creators?" Jason frowned. "You mean the aliens who built it?" Laura nodded, struggling to make sense of what she'd seen. "They called themselves the Vorthan. They knew about us, about humanity. They left this ship behind as a gift, a way to protect us when the time came." Jason stared at her, his expression unreadable. "If the Empire finds out about this—" "They can't," Laura interrupted firmly. "Not yet. We need to learn everything we can first. This ship is our only hope." Unbeknownst to them, their progress hadn't gone unnoticed. Somewhere, deep within the Empire's ranks, a spy had intercepted fragments of their communications. The news of the Aegis Dawn spread quickly, reaching the ears of Grand Admiral Marcus Drake. His cold eyes narrowed as he studied the intel. "So," he murmured, a cruel smile forming on his lips, "the rebels think they've found salvation. Let's see how long their miracle lasts." Far away, the Aegis Dawn hummed quietly, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. For now, it remained humanity's secret weapon, a beacon of hope in the vast dark expanse of space. But soon, its existence would ignite a war that would shake the galaxy to its core. The calm of space was shattered as alarms blared across the Eclipse vanguard. A single transmission from Admiral Lewis Harper confirmed their worst fears. The Empire knew about the Aegis Dawn. Grand Admiral Marcus Drake, one of the most feared commanders in the Imperial fleet, was en route with a massive armada. His flagship, the Iron Sovereign, led an imposing force of destroyers, cruisers, and bombers, all heading straight for Earth. Captain Ryan Carter clenched his fists as he addressed the crew. "We don't have much time. If we want to protect the Aegis Dawn, we need to act fast." Jason Holt stood beside him, his jaw tight with determination. "They'll tear us apart if they find it. We can't let that happen." Ryan nodded. "Then we'll use the Aegis Dawn's cloaking ability to hide it while we draw their attention. The Eclipse vanguard will serve as bait." Laura stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Sir, are you sure? That's too dangerous." "It's our only option," Ryan replied firmly. "If we can lure them into range, the Aegis Dawn might be able to strike back before they realize what hit them." With no time to waste, the plan was set into motion. The Aegis Dawn activated its cloaking field, vanishing from sight as the Eclipse vanguard moved into position. Its engines roared as it accelerated toward the incoming Imperial fleet, broadcasting false signals to make itself appear larger and more threatening than it actually was. Hours later, the first wave of enemy ships appeared on the horizon. Dozens of sleek fighters darted ahead of the main fleet, firing warning shots to herd the Eclipse vanguard into position. Behind them loomed the Iron Sovereign, its massive frame bristling with weapons and glowing with ominous red lights. "Here they come," Jason muttered, gripping the railing of the bridge. Explosions rocked the ship as laser fire tore through the void, narrowly missing the hull. The crew scrambled to return fire, but the odds were overwhelmingly against them. Ryan's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold your ground. Keep them occupied." Meanwhile, hidden beneath its cloak, the Aegis Dawn drifted silently closer. Laura monitored the situation from its central chamber, her hands hovering over the controls. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The lives of everyone aboard the Eclipse vanguard depended on her next move. Back on the smaller vessel, the battle grew fiercer. Enemy fighters swarmed like insects, peppering the shields with relentless attacks. Smoke filled the corridors as systems began to fail. Despite their efforts, the Eclipse vanguard was outnumbered and outgunned. "We're not going to last much longer," Emily shouted, clutching a console for balance as another explosion shook the ship. Ryan gritted his teeth. "Just a little longer. Trust me." Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the battlefield. The cloaking field around the Aegis Dawn flickered off, revealing the Supercarrier in all its glory. Its massive form dwarfed the Imperial fleet, its glowing vanes casting an eerie light across the surrounding ships. For a moment, there was stunned silence. Even the Empire's forces seemed frozen by the sight. Then, without warning, the Aegis Dawn unleashed its fury. Plasma cannons fired in rapid succession, obliterating entire squadrons of fighters in flashes of brilliant blue energy. Shields flared and collapsed under the onslaught, leaving the remaining ships vulnerable. The gravity well generator hummed to life, creating distortions in space that pulled enemy vessels helplessly toward their doom. On board the Iron Sovereign, Grand Admiral Drake watched in disbelief. "What is that thing?" he snarled, slamming his fist against the armrest of his command chair. "Take it down, now." But it was already too late. The tide of the battle had turned. The Eclipse vanguard, battered but still intact, regrouped alongside the Aegis Dawn, ready to deliver the final blow. As the two ships worked together, The once dominant Imperial fleet began to crumble, retreating into the depths of space. For the first time in years, humanity had struck a decisive victory against the Empire. But Ryan knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, and the true cost of wielding the Aegis Dawn had yet to be revealed. The battlefield was chaos. The Aegis Dawn dominated the void, its plasma cannons lighting up the darkness with bursts of blue energy. Enemy ships exploded in fiery clouds, their debris scattering across space like confetti. The Imperial fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable power, now scrambled to regroup under the relentless assault. But Grand Admiral Marcus Drake wasn't one to retreat easily. "Focus all firepower on that monstrosity," Drake barked, his voice sharp with fury. "If we don't destroy it now, it'll annihilate us." From the bridge of the Iron Sovereign, Drake watched as his forces launched wave after wave of attacks against the Supercarrier. Bombers dove toward the Aegis Dawn, unleashing salvos of missiles designed to penetrate even the strongest shields. For a moment, it seemed like the Empire might gain the upper hand. The barrage struck hard, causing the glowing veins on the ship's hull to flicker. Inside the Aegis Dawn, Laura gripped the console tightly, her knuckles white. She could feel the ship shudder under the impact, but it held firm. The energy shields absorbed most of the damage, though warning lights began to flash across the panels. "We can't take much more of this," Jason said, his voice tense. He stood beside Laura, ready to act if the situation worsened. Laura shook her head. "It's holding, just barely." She glanced at the holographic display hovering above the central chamber. It showed the positions of both fleets, including the Iron Sovereign. An idea sparked in her mind. "Jason, what if we target their command ship directly? If we disable Drake's flagship, the rest of the fleet will fall into disarray." Jason nodded. "Good plan. Let's do it." Back on the Eclipse Vanguard, Ryan coordinated with the Aegis Dawn to execute the strategy. "Holt, take your team and focus on disabling their fighters. We'll keep them distracted while the Aegis Dawn goes after the Iron Sovereign." "Understood," Jason replied over the comms. He led a squad of pilots into the fray, weaving through enemy fire with precision. Their smaller fighters darted around the larger ships, targeting weak points and forcing the Imperial forces to split their attention. Meanwhile, Laura activated the Aegis Dawn's gravity well generator. The device emitted a low hum as it created distortions in space-time, pulling nearby enemy vessels off course. Fighters spiraled uncontrollably, colliding with each other or drifting helplessly into the void. Larger ships struggled to maintain their trajectories, their engines straining against the invisible force. Drake cursed under his breath as he realized the Supercarrier's true potential. "Launch everything we've got. Don't let them get close." But it was too late. The Aegis Dawn locked onto the Iron Sovereign with unerring accuracy, its plasma cannons charged, glowing brighter with each passing second. Then with a deafening roar, it fired. A massive beam of energy surged forward, striking the Imperial flagship dead center. The shields buckled instantly, and explosions erupted. Along the hull, on board the Iron Sovereign. Alarms blared as the crew scrambled to contain the damage. Fires raged through the corridors and smoke filled the air. Drake staggered to his feet, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "Ramming speed, take us straight at that thing." His order shocked even his own officers. "Sir, are you sure?" one of them stammered. "I gave an order," Drake snapped. "Do it." The Iron Sovereign lurched forward, its engines blazing, as it sped toward the Aegis Dawn. Laura's eyes widened as she saw the dreadnought bearing down on them. "They're going to ram us." Ryan's voice crackled over the comms. "Laura, get out of there, now!" But Laura hesitated. She couldn't abandon the ship, not when so much depended on it. Instead, she turned to Eos, the sentient AI core she'd discovered earlier. "Eos, is there anything we can do to stop them?" The AI's calm voice responded. "There is one option. Activate the self-replicating pulse. It will overload their systems and disable their engines, but it requires manual initiation." Laura swallowed hard. "Manual initiation, meaning someone has to stay behind." "Yes," Eos confirmed. "And time is critical." Without hesitation, Laura made her decision. She turned to Jason, who had just arrived in the central chamber. "Get back to the Eclipse Vanguard. I'll handle this." "What? No." Jason protested. "You're not staying here alone." "There's no other choice," Laura said firmly. "Trust me, Jason. This is what I'm meant to do." Before he could argue further, she activated the sequence and pushed him toward the exit. As the doors sealed shut behind him, Laura placed her hands on the console, feeling the hum of the ship beneath her fingertips. The countdown began, ticking down the seconds until the pulse would fire. Outside, the Iron Sovereign hurtled closer, its massive form looming like a harbinger of doom. Then, with a brilliant flash, the pulse activated. Waves of energy rippled outward, engulfing the Imperial flagship. Its engines sputtered and died, leaving the behemoth adrift in space. As the remaining Imperial ships fled, the crew of the Eclipse Vanguard watched in stunned silence. They had won, but at a cost none of them were prepared to accept. The victory was bittersweet. The Iron Sovereign drifted lifelessly in space, its engines dead and its crew scrambling to repair the damage. The rest of the Imperial fleet had retreated, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and debris. But aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, no one celebrated. Their thoughts were with Laura, who had sacrificed herself to save them all. Jason stood on the bridge, his face pale and his fists clenched. He stared at the Aegis Dawn through the viewport, its glowing veins dimmed now that the battle was over. "We can't just leave her," he muttered, his voice heavy with guilt. "There has to be a way to get her out." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder, but his expression was grim. "If she activated the self-replicating pulse manually, it's likely already done. We don't even know if the chamber is still intact." "She wouldn't have stayed if she didn't think it was worth it," Emily said softly, trying to offer some comfort. "She saved us, Jason. All of us." But Jason shook his head, unwilling to accept it. "That doesn't mean we abandon her." Before anyone could stop him, he turned and headed for the airlock. Ryan called after him, but Jason ignored the order. His mind was made up. He wasn't leaving without Laura. When Jason reached the Aegis Dawn, he found the central chamber sealed shut. Smoke seeped from cracks in the walls, and sparks flew from damaged panels. The ship itself seemed quieter, now as though it too mourned what had happened. Jason used an emergency override to force the doors open, stepping inside cautiously. "Laura!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the room. At first there was no response. Then, amidst the haze, he saw her slumped against the console. Her breathing was shallow and her face was streaked with soot, but she was alive. "Jason," she whispered weakly, lifting her head slightly. "You shouldn't be here." "I'm not leaving you," he replied firmly, kneeling beside her. He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved toward the exit. "We're getting out of here." As they stepped back into the corridor, the ship trembled violently. Eos's voice echoed around them. "Warning, structural integrity compromised. Evacuate immediately." Jason tightened his grip on Laura, moving as quickly as he could. Behind them, sections of the wall began to collapse, sealing off parts of the ship. They barely made it to the shuttle bay before the entire structure groaned under the strain. The Aegis Dawn was falling apart. They launched the shuttle just in time, watching from the cockpit as pieces of the Supercarrier broke away and drifted into space. Though damaged, the core of the ship remained intact, its glowing veins flickering faintly. It wasn't gone, not yet. Back aboard the Eclipse Vanguard, the crew gathered in silence as Jason carried Laura to the medical bay. She was weak but conscious, her sacrifice having spared them all. Ryan approached her later, sitting beside her bed. "You knew the risk when you stayed," he said quietly. "Why didn't you tell us?" Laura managed a small smile. "Because none of you would have let me do it. Someone had to protect this ship and everyone on it." Her words hung in the air, a reminder of the cost of their freedom. The Aegis Dawn had given them hope, but it had also demanded a price. And though they had won the battle, the scars of war ran deep. Hours later, Ryan stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. The Aegis Dawn lingered in the distance, its presence a constant reminder of the power and responsibility they now carried. Admiral Harper's voice crackled over the comms, congratulating them on their victory, but Ryan felt no pride, only resolve. "We've struck a blow against the Empire," he told his crew, his voice steady. "But this isn't the end. They'll come for us again, stronger and angrier. We need to be ready." The crew nodded, their determination renewed. They had lost friends and comrades, but they had also gained something precious, a chance to fight back. With the Aegis Dawn by their side, humanity might finally stand a chance against the tyranny that had oppressed them for so long. As the Eclipse Vanguard set course for safer territory, Laura lay in the medical bay, her thoughts drifting to the vision she'd seen aboard the Supercarrier. The Vorthan had entrusted her with their legacy, and she knew their work was far from finished. Whatever trials lay ahead, she vowed to honor their gift and ensure it was used wisely. For now, the galaxy rested in uneasy peace, but the shadows of the Empire loomed large and the fight for freedom was only beginning. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast sea of possibilities and dangers. The Eclipse Vanguard moved silently through space, its crew weary but resolute. Though they had survived the battle against Grand Admiral Drake's fleet, the scars of war lingered, both on their ship and in their hearts. Laura sat in the medical bay, her body healing but her mind restless. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Aegis Dawn had chosen her for more than just a single battle. Its creators, the Vorthan, had left behind something greater, a mission she was only beginning to understand. Ryan stood on the bridge, staring at the holographic map displayed before him. The Empire's forces were scattered after their defeat, but he knew it wouldn't last long. Retreating wasn't in their nature. "We need to strike while we have the advantage," he said aloud, though no one responded immediately. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on his shoulders. Every decision carried consequences, and every choice risked lives. Jason stepped forward, his expression grim but determined. "Where do we go next? Back to Earth?" Ryan shook his head. "No. Earth is safe for now, but staying there won't win us this war. We need allies. Worlds oppressed by the Empire who are willing to fight back." Laura joined them moments later, still pale but steady on her feet. Her presence brought a sense of calm to the room. "The Aegis Dawn can help us reach those worlds," she said softly. "It's not just a weapon. It's a symbol, a sign that humanity isn't alone in this fight." Emily nodded, adjusting her glasses as she studied the map. "If we spread the word about what happened here, if we show other colonies that the Empire can be beaten, they'll rise up. But we'll need to act quickly." Ryan turned to Jason. "Prepare the crews. We'll divide into teams and visit key systems. Spread the message. The Empire's reign is ending." As the days passed, the Eclipse Vanguard and the Aegis Dawn traveled together, leaving ripples of hope in their wake. On each planet they visited, they shared stories of their victory, showing footage of the battle and the Supercarrier's unmatched power. At first, many were skeptical, afraid to believe that resistance was possible. But as more people saw the truth, rebellion began to take root. On one such world, a mining colony known as Thalos the Fort, the crew met a young woman named Mara. Her eyes burned with anger as she recounted how the Empire had stripped her people of everything, their resources, their freedom, even their dignity. When she saw the Aegis Dawn, tears filled her eyes. This changes everything," she whispered. "If you're willing to stand with us, we'll fight alongside you." Word spread faster than Ryan had imagined. Colonies once silenced by fear now rose up, uniting under a common cause. The Empire's grip began to weaken as rebellions erupted across the galaxy. Yet with each victory came new challenges. Supplies ran low, and the strain of constant travel took its toll on both ships and crew. Still they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. One night, as the Eclipse Vanguard orbited a distant moon, Ryan found Laura standing alone on the observation deck. She stared out at the stars, her face illuminated by their faint light. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" she asked quietly. Ryan hesitated before answering. Every day. But I also know this. If we don't try, nothing will change. The Empire won't stop until it controls everything. Or destroys it. Laura nodded slowly. I keep thinking about the Vorthen. What they must have sacrificed to leave the Aegis Dawn behind. They trusted us to carry their legacy. And we will, Ryan said firmly, not just for them, but for everyone who suffered under the Empire. In the weeks that followed, the rebellion grew stronger. The Aegis Dawn became a beacon of hope, its glowing form appearing in system after system to rally the oppressed. Battles were fought, lives were lost, but the tide was turning. Humanity, once fractured and afraid, began to unite under a single banner: freedom. Far away, deep within the heart of the Empire, whispers of the Aegis Dawn reached the ears of those in power. Fear crept into their ranks, sowing doubt among their leaders. For the first time, the Empire faced an enemy it couldn't crush, an idea that refused to die. As the Eclipse Vanguard and the Aegis Dawn disappeared into the stars, their journey was far from over. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere, in the echoes of collapsing stars and rising civilizations, the Vorthen watched, their gift finally fulfilling its purpose.